Hello and welcome to the Cash News Podcast, your go-to source for informative conversations about all things cash and currency. From cash security and payments technology to the cash supply chain, we're here to share insights on the issues shaping the world of cash today. Join your hosts, Tom Meehan, Sean Ferrari, and Brad Moody, as they dive into the latest trends, strategies, and technology. This is the Cash News Podcast. Now, here's Tom, Sean, and Brad.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cash News Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Brad Moody, joined by our esteemed colleague, Sean. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Good to see everybody. Sean Ferrari here. I think Brad and I would love to wish everybody a happy holiday season as we kick off this episode. I am out and about, so don't be alarmed. I have a seatbelt on, but I am not driving at the actual moment when I am parked. No one be alarmed. But it's great to see everybody. I have begun the holiday travel festivities, so good to chat with everybody.
Yep, and drive fast and take chances over the holiday week, and make sure that you drive exceedingly over the speed limit so you can pay your traffic tickets in cash. So we appreciate that.
They like pennies. They like trunkfuls of pennies dropped off at the courthouses.
And apparently the banks say there are so many pennies out there, right? Pennies. We don't want to get the penny discussion because it's
that's a great Christmas gift. Rolls of pennies somewhere.
They're going to be worth millions of dollars soon, right? So
yeah, exactly.
But I thought with the current economic environment and all the stuff that's going on in media and news. I did just a little bit of cursory research on what is going on with the holiday spending and how does that relate to the current political environment and the consumer confidence. And so some of the numbers, and it's probably because we're greedy Americans and we don't think way far in advance, but just kind of looking at some of the numbers, comparing the past 5 years are really interesting. I think because I'm a nerd, but when we look at the cash in this space of how much currency is being used as far as a form of payment, according to Capital One Shopping Network, 73% of in-store purchases are made in credit cards, which is okay. But shockingly that 11% of that is in-store is actually currency. So from a behavior standpoint, I can only think that maybe people are starting to use currency as a budgetary, method to where they say, hey, I'm spending, $350 on presents this year, and this is my budget, this is my discipline, and I'm going to spend that. I don't know. It's an interesting metric because it seems a little high to us. At least it does to me, but it's kind of on point, and I'm really kind of surprised on it. And again, it's in-store purchases, so that's not going to count towards the, Amazons and everything else. But Sean, I don't know if you have an opinion about that as well.
Yeah, no, I mean it's an interesting stat, and I think it makes sense. I think it jives broadly with what we're hearing, as you say that is just in-store, so it doesn't take into account online. And I'm sure online shopping is continuing to be a huge growth area for many different reasons. But I think from that in-store piece, overall, I think when you look at like the Fed diary study and everything, it's, cash use was still in that 16-17% area. So looking at 11% in-store, as you say, it sounds high, but it's also, it's under that 16-17%, probably makes sense in the right ballpark. So I'm not I'm not shocked by it, with my own behavior and everything. Sure, I don't tend to spend that much cash personally, but again, I think what we saw, and one of the things that we've heard actually, as I think back through the series of events that have happened this fall, I think one of the messages coming out of pretty much all of those, and different points of emphasis probably on this point, depending on the region of the world we're in. But when I look at, we were in Asia, we were in Africa, we were in the US, a consistent theme through all of those events and conferences was that cash is continuing to grow, it's continuing to hold its own. the thought of cash going away and not being used at point of sale is just not true. I mean, the values may change, the quantities may change, and where you are in the world, it's different, but it's still definitely being used.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it jives with all that.
Yeah. Well, another numbers that I pulled out are, I said, all right, so how are we doing comparative on Black Friday shopping? Because, just that's kind of a good gain of consumer confidence. So I think it's pretty interesting how consumer confidence has decreased from, looking at 24, 96.55%, according to the Board of Consumer Confidence. Previous years at 23, it was 104, right? But 20 and 25, it's a record. It's an 88.7, which is the lowest it's been in consumer confidence over the past 5 years. So that to me is interesting. When I say spending has gone up, which again, I'm going back to the being just kind of greedy Americans not thinking about stuff. So in 24, Black Friday spend is estimated to be around 10.8 billion just for Black Friday. And then in 25, it went up to 11.75 billion. So, with consumer confidence being lower, more money is being spent, which is kind of an inverse relationship. Right? You would think that it would be opposite.
Yeah, you would think it would be opposite. I wonder if I read an article somewhere where they were saying more and more people were searching for more and more deals and sales, and I wonder if that's part of that, where more people shopped earlier to try to get some Black Friday deals. It'd be interesting to see the total holiday spend when that number comes out. Do you have that or what? No,
exactly. So I was like, all right, so how about on Cyber Monday? With Cyber Monday, it actually eclipses Black Friday now, because I think it's just easier to buy on the internet. And you don't have to wait in lines. Of course, I used to do that. I used to love camping out at midnight. The door opens at 12:03, and I'd get there right after Thanksgiving dinner with a tent. I mean, I used to do that for buying gifts for the kids, right? Because you want to be the first one to buy the Wii Fit. Yeah, that kind of, that was a lot of fun. Yeah. But what's interesting is when you look at Cyber Monday, I mean, it's the 25 numbers are now, but Cyber Monday was $13.3 billion on top. So, I guess that's showing people are shopping in their pajamas at home, or putting their shopping cart and wait for the prices to drop, which is, again, we love to see the spend. And, it's a 10% year over year growth in Cyber Monday sales. So that's, again, for 24. The 25 numbers haven't been released yet, but I think it's good. But again, that inverse relationship doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at the unemployment market of 21, which was really high. That's COVID recovery year. It was at 5.35%. So which is a very high number. But in 23, 2 years later, 3.64% unemployment, which is a historic low. So that's great. People getting back to work. But in 23, the consumer spend and the confidence was at its highest. Well, the inflationary market in 23 was coming down from 22. So it seems like, there's a teeter-totter that they meet, that as inflation is rapidly dropping, consumer confidence is getting better, the economy is getting better, people are spending more, and there's less unemployment. That all makes sense. But right now, as of November, we're at 4.6% unemployment, and our spending is increasing. So it's an interesting metric, and I don't understand why, especially with the inflation rate, which is slowing. Which is let's give America some kind of confidence here that is slowing from 2.95 to 2.2 year over year. So it is slowing, but it's interesting slowing. But the consumer confidence is going historic lows, and inflation unemployment is rising. So you're the economist. Do the math, or roll the bones on the table and see what happens. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's not a clear story right now, and I think that's what's freaking a lot of people out. probably feeding into that consumer confidence number a bit too, where it's hard to come up with a coherent story of why people are spending as much as they are. Is it, credit's way up, credit usage is way up, people are going into more and more debt, interest rates have come down a little bit, over the past few FOMC cycles, so credit's a little cheaper, but still there's still a lot of buy now pay later, there's still a lot of
right, that's scary
usage, there's still, and it is scary. So I mean, I think to your earlier point of, we like to spend here, we like to spend in this time of year in particular, credit's going to go up more, and I think there is that fear of, is there some sort of pop coming where it's just, we're continuing to spend and spend and spend, and sooner or later we're not going to be able to get that credit, and the credit bills are going to be due, and we're going to be in some trouble.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it kind of feels that way, but
and then just let's hope that there's no housing crisis or something major that could pop up that could really expectedly unexpect others to say, they're because new homes or purchases are going down, and so there's just a lot car purchases and things like that. The big purchase items are it's an odd time of year, but it's an odd year in general. So I don't know, just again, we could nerd out about this, and for the 3 people that will watch this, they'll probably agree or disagree, right? But it's in an inflationary market. It's just an interesting method with consumer confidence going lower, but inflation starting to flatten out, which is always a good thing. But people need to understand that stagflation is really bad, and deflation is really bad. So we need inflation to some respect. As you mentioned, the interest rates are going down to try to adjust. So, and people are spending, they're spending more than they're able to pay, in hopes of a recovery. We do see obviously a much different spending behavior in red states as we do in blue states. Which is always interesting. So some of the surveys that you look at, if you look at something that comes out of Michigan, the Michigan report is going to be much different from other reports. Not to pick on the state of Michigan, right? That live here, but it's an important thing for people to recognize. And also, I can't urge enough for people to do their fact finding and not listen to mainstream media and take that as gospel. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, and I think, as you say, there's so many different sources of information. There's so many different pieces of information that, a lot of times it's not even trying to mislead or tell a particular story, but depending on where you pick your stat. I mean, you picked some good ones earlier today from Capital One, and I have no reason to not believe what Capital One is saying, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, this is what one of the banks is saying.
Right.
Take it for what it's worth. Find another stat somewhere else that may be a little different. Who knows?
Yeah, and and going back to kind of spend habits and payments choices is the payments coalition, payment choice coalitions. The reports are about to come out, from what I understand. So that's going to be a good level set as well. And Tom and I are pretty involved in that organization. They're doing some really good things from the legislation side. So those results are going to be really more than influence, because it was actually proper. So not to say that the Fed survey is great, but this is just a bigger segment with more questions and more options. So let's see what that pops out. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and we'll go from there. Learn some more stuff.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be a great piece of research that I think we'll definitely be able to spend an episode or 3 on, in terms of talking and deep diving into some of that info for sure.
I'm going to nerd out like you wouldn't believe. I'm a stat guy, so I appreciate
So Christmas
it.
is coming a little later for you when you get that report.
That's right. That'll be my gift for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'll tell my wife, I'll see you next week.
That's right. There you go.
All right. Was there anything else you want to chat about? I know that you're in the car and you'd like to get to where you're going.
No, I think that was a nice little recap. It's a good discussion of what's going on this holiday season. as I said, it's been a busy end of the year. I think just on the point about maybe cash usage, I mentioned it kind of when I was saying some of the themes we heard at the end of the year. I don't know that we spent a whole lot of time talking about some of the things we heard when we were in Africa at our event in Ghana. That was probably the most recent one that I don't know that we've done an episode since that. But one of the things I just wanted, did we do one where we talked a little bit about that?
Yeah, please do it. I'd love to hear a recap. I forgot all about it.
Yeah, no. I think it was a great event. We had over 1,000 people there, from all over the world, a lot from Ghana. The president of Ghana gave the introductory remarks. That was fantastic. And just a lot of different central banks talking about what's going on. And I think one of the conference was really to celebrate the anniversary of the cedi. It was the 60th anniversary of the Ghanaian cedi, their currency. So there was a lot of celebration around what currency means, how it's the hallmark of a nation, how it provides stability and economic access to a country, and how it's evolved over the 60 years for independence and other things. So there was a lot of talk about the currency. We talked a bit about the digital cedi and how that's evolving and coming to take shape. But I think what was fascinating for me was, and we know this intuitively and empirically, but just to kind of hear it being said was interesting, that the African central banks in particular that were there, we were just talking about 11%, is that too high of cash usage, what have you, what does that mean, is it trending down, all that sort of stuff. That's not the world that Africa sees, right? It's a very different world where a lot of cash is used. And I don't know what the percentage is in terms of retail transactions, but it's a lot. And yes, there may be some more access to mobile payments, to digital currencies, stable coins, all that stuff is there. And it's used in certain pockets, I would say, but by and large, much like here, that technology is not replacing cash. It's replacing other electronics. It's niche use cases where it makes sense to use it, but if you're using cash for a particular transaction, chances are you're continuing to use cash, and you're going to use more cash and so forth. So I think some of the things the central banks really wanted to emphasize as we go forward and do programming for next year is to be very mindful of this kind of lens we're putting on the discussion of, cash is reaching this new, lower, stabilized point. While that may be the case for the U.S., for Europe, for less cash-intense countries, those that are still, there are a lot of countries, Africa, in Africa, in Asia, South America, that are heavy cash users, that continue to be heavy cash users, and don't see a lot of inroads into that from the electronics. So much so that the printers are having trouble keeping up, and the lead times to get notes are building and building and building. So there's a different story out there that was definitely interesting to kind of hear.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's cool. No,
Yeah,
I want to learn more about that. It's an interesting perspective. After talking to my buddy Josh, we did that one. He's talking about people just carrying around bags of cash because that's how much it takes to just buy simple things. So I'd be really curious to see, because it is important and it's relevant. And, we could talk about the infrastructure, all that kind of stuff, but it's a behavior, it's a culture. So
it is. It's definitely, that's what it is. It's culture, it's behavior. It's and changing it, if you want to change it, takes a lot of work and effort, and as a central bank in particular, you kind of have to ask yourself, why do I want it? Why do I want to change that?
Good point.
Not that there aren't valid reasons. Some places there are, but you also have to kind of decide if that's what you want to try to do or not. But anyway, so it was a fascinating end of the year. It was a great one to end off on. We're just, looking forward to the new year and getting back at it after a couple weeks of holiday rest here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Mine starts Monday. So
there you go.
All right, buddy. Hey, Appreciate your time, Sean. Thanks for joining. Even though you're in the car, we do appreciate your time as always. And please like and subscribe. And we look forward to our next conversation. I appreciate it so much.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Cash News Podcast. We hope you found this episode insightful. Don't forget to like and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, and be sure to visit us at thecashnews.com to stay up to date with the latest on the world of cash. Thanks again for listening to the Cash News Podcast.